I wanted to take you along with me today as I started some seeds using the most simple, inexpensive, and relatively hands-off way to start seeds, and that is the winter sowing method. If you aren't familiar with the winter sowing method, it is basically taking a recycled container and creating a mini greenhouse. So that way you can use the outside air temperature, sunlight, and moisture to germinate your seeds at the appropriate time. There are a handful of seeds, specifically some perennial seeds, that actually require a period of cold called cold stratification to germinate. And that's just a built-in survival mechanism for the seeds so that they don't sprout at the wrong time in nature. So using the winter sowing method on those perennial seeds in particular is really helpful because you're setting your whole little mini greenhouse outside. It's getting exposed to the cold, getting the right sunlight, and then as soon as things start to warm up in spring, it triggers the seed to germinate at the right time. So when can you start winter sowing? Basically anytime after winter solstice, which is December 21st. Anytime after that period, you can create your containers and set them outside. It's currently February where I am in Zone 7A, Central Virginia, and it's not too late to start winter sowing. Our nighttime temperatures are still in the 20s, averaging 20s, low 30s occasionally. And as long as your temperatures are below 40, you'll still get that period of cold for the cold stratification that your specific perennials might need. So it's definitely not too late to start. As far as which perennials need that period of cold, the cold stratification, there's a handful of them. Lupin, hollyhock, echinacea coneflower, rudbeckias, catmint. I'm trying to think, there's quite a few. You can just Google whatever seeds that you are starting and just see if it is required of your seed. I just wanted to go over some of the advantages to winter sowing. We already mentioned cold stratification, so you're already going to get the seeds that need that period of cold exposed to the cold. Obviously, the big one is it's inexpensive. You're just using recycled containers. You don't have to purchase grow lights or seed trays or fancy setups. You're utilizing natural resources. They're exposed to the sunlight outside. They're receiving moisture from rain or snow. It's a relatively hands-off time. Unless you go through a period where you're not receiving a lot of rainfall, you might need to go out there and just kind of spot check and see if they're dry and add a little water to top them off. But for the most part, you really don't have to touch them. The other thing is it creates really tough plants. Because they're already outside exposed to all the elements, you don't have a period that you need to harden them off. They are already ready to go. If you need to pot them up or plant them out once the temperatures warm up, they are ready to go. Another advantage is that it protects your seeds and your seedlings. So, direct sowing, I typically direct sow sunflowers, zinnias, cosmos, that sort of thing. But there is the potential that if we get a heavy rain, it can wash the seeds out. Birds or squirrels can come eat my seeds. And this protects the seeds. So you can do this even though you're not winter sowing. You can do it in the springtime as just kind of a mini greenhouse. So today I am going to get my containers all set up. I'll show you, I have a variety of different containers. I'll walk you through which containers I'm using, how we set them up, and the seeds that I am going to sow in my containers. So as far as containers that you can use to winter sow, there are so many different options out there. You can do a quick Google search and see people get so creative. I've seen Ziploc bags with clothespins at the top to keep the bag open. I've seen those great big storage, like clear storage containers where people have drilled holes in the top and the bottom. You just really need any clear container that allows light to get in, something that you can drill holes in at the bottom and a hole at the top for rain to get in. It needs to be able to hold about 3 to 4 inches of soil. That'll be enough for your seedlings to get going, and then a little bit of headroom for your seedlings to grow as they get a little taller. I have old water jugs, milk jugs, other water bottles. This held vinegar. These are old produce containers that grapes came in. Really, you can get creative. The other thing you need is duct tape. You'll need something to seal your container because once we pot this up and put the seeds in, we are going to tape around it to seal it off. So a nice strong tape like duct tape. Don't recommend like masking tape or packing tape. The sun really degrades those, and so does the rain. A good garden marker, I usually label on the outside on the duct tape, and then also a label inside, because for whatever reason, the label on the inside will get lost, or the label on the outside will get faded from the sun. So labeling twice really helps prevent any mix-ups. Then of course some scissors and a knife so that you can cut your container, make sure that you can poke some holes in the bottom for drainage, and then an opening at the top. After that, you just need your soil and your seeds. So I just quickly wanted to go over some of the seeds that I'm starting today. Most of my seeds I got from Swallowtail seeds, Johnny seeds, I think that's pretty much, oh, and then a few from Park Seed. I am doing Agastache Estello Indigo. I just actually started growing Agastache last year and I absolutely love it. It blooms all summer long, pretty much until frost. Has purple flowers on it, gets about 20 inches tall, and is hardy to zone 6 and above. Really excited for this one. I also am gonna do some Agastache Apache Sunset. This one's hardy zone 5 and above, gets a little bit taller at 24 inches, and it has really pretty kind of peachy orange, rose colored blooms. And the foliage is more like a silvery green, just provides a really nice contrast. So in addition to that, I am also doing some Calamintha, which is new to me, so I hope I have success with it. I'm doing the Marvelette Blue and the Marvelette White. They are hardy to zone 5 and above, and then grow into about an 8 to 10 inch mound. They tend to like afternoon shade in really hot areas, which I'm in a zone 7 and Central Virginia, and we do get pretty intense heat in July and August, so I'll have to take that into consideration. Also going to be growing some Echinacea, 4 different varieties. First up, I have Double Decker. This one has a double pink bloom. It says the first year it blooms in just a single, and then the next year it blooms with a double bloom. And it almost looks like a twin bloom, like 2 blooms sitting on top of each other. Also the Powwow White and the Powwow Wildberry. Both of these get to be about 24 inches tall, covered with blooms, deer resistant, just really hardy, great cut flowers, good perennials to have in the garden. And the last Echinacea variety I'm going to do is White Swan. It is a more of a creamy white bloom and tends to be a little bit lower growing than other Echinaceas. And all these Echinaceas are hardy down to zone 3. Next up, I have Gora, Sparkle White Gora. I have grown Gora in my garden for years. I just absolutely love it. It tends to have kind of a whimsical cottage look. The blooms, they're just on these long arching stems and they really kind of catch the breeze. It definitely gives much more like cottage vibes, but they're beautiful. They bloom all summer long. If they ever go out of bloom, you can just cut them back and they will flush right back out. This particular variety, the Sparkle White, it's a white bloom with like just a little hint of light pink, and it pretty much blooms from June until your first frost. That one is hardy down to zone 6. I have 2 different hollyhocks here. I have pretty much the traditional Chatter's Double. It's a double bloom mix that I have, and these are a mix of colors of yellows, pinks, reds. Typically with hollyhocks, they're a biennial or a short-lived perennial. So these might bloom this year, but most likely they'll just bloom next year. I also have a halo mix, which is just a single hollyhock bloom with a bright center. Both of these hollyhocks are hardy down to zone 3. Next up, I'm gonna try and grow some lavender. I've heard lavender is not the easiest to grow from seed, so I thought I would give it a try with the winter sowing because it gives it that cold stratification period, and also it makes for a pretty tough plant. The 2 varieties I'm going to try, one is a French long, which is a Spanish lavender. This one it typically gets kind of a bicolor look. The bracts are more of a violet and the flowers are a lighter lavender. It's just really pretty, and it tends to bloom earlier than most English lavenders. The other lavender I'm going to try is an English lavender, the Hidcote Superior. This one is more compact and only gets about 16 inches tall, and it has a deep blue-violet bloom all summer long. So this Hidcote Superior is hardy down to zone 5, and I don't think I mentioned the French long lavender is just hardy zones 7 through 9. I am also going to grow some lupin this year. I am doing 2 different ones. One is just a mix of different perennial lupins that have a mix of blues, purples, lavenders. And then the other variety is the Governor. And this is more of like the classic lupin, produces like 40-inch long stalks that are just a nice bright blue, purple, and white flower. They bloom typically late spring, early summer. And one thing to note about lupin is all parts of the plant are poisonous. So just take that into consideration if you have kids or pets. A new plant to me is ornamental oregano. This one is kirigami. I've seen other gardeners grow it and it looks so pretty for texture. It's definitely it's a foliage plant. It has kind of a muted dusty green and dusty rose leaf to it, kind of even a little chartreuse in areas, but it's just really, really beautiful. It tends to trail. It's like an 8 to 10 inch plant. It's not a culinary oregano, it's just grown for its foliage. And this one is hardy to zone 5 and above, so it is a perennial. I plan to use it in some of my containers. Next up, I have 2 different rudbeckias. I am gonna do the caramel mixed, which this will be an annual in my area. You know, rudbeckias make great cut flowers. The caramel mixed is a mix of double and semi-double blooms of rose, copper, and amber shades. I thought this would just be really pretty for some cut flower arrangements in the fall. And then the other variety I am growing is the cherry brandy, which is more of a deep wine colored red. This one is a perennial in zones 9 and 10, but will be an annual for me. I am also gonna try and grow some snow in summer. I have purchased this as a plant and grown it as a perennial in my previous house and just absolutely loved it. It tends to kind of be more of a mounding ground cover, can get up to 3 feet wide, and some people say it can be invasive in some areas and spread. I never have had that trouble. It's very easy to control and dig up if it pops up in a space that's not desired. It is basically a just dense mound of kind of silvery gray foliage and just gets covered in white blooms in the summer. Just a really great perennial. I am also going to grow some thyme ground cover. So this is basically an evergreen, very low growing, like 3-inch tall evergreen. I plan to use it to grow in between some stepping stones. And last up, I have some yarrow. This is a new to me variety, marshmallow. There's no other way to describe it other than just cute little pom-pom marshmallow-like blooms. They're white on top of about a 12-inch tall plant. And like other yarrows, it's perennial. It is just a very easy to grow, doesn't require rich soil, fertilizing, anything like that. And it is just a great performer. And this one is hardy to zone 3 and above. All right, so I figured I would walk you through the steps of creating one of the containers. And then after that, I am just gonna get going and knock out as many containers as I can today. All right, so this one is an old milk jug. You wanna take the cap off so that way rainfall can get in. Your first step is create some drain holes. I just do about 4 in a container this size. Kind of stick my knife in and twist so it stays open. And then next up, we're just gonna cut around here. I'll cut all the way to the handle and create the hinge, kind of where the handle is. So we've got our container, we've got our drain holes, we've got it cut open, opening on the top. And next up, we're gonna get our soil. All right, so I have some soil from another project still in here. It is a little dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and pre-moisten this soil before adding it to my container. with seed starting, I recommend pre-moistening your soil. That way, when you water your seedling in, if you wasn't pre-moistened, you would just kind of wash away your seeds and kind of disperse where you place them. So you want your soil wet, not completely dripping, but enough that when you squeeze it, it clumps together. So I think I need to add a tiny bit to some down here. One thing to note is when you're getting your soil for your containers, you want to make sure you're using a potting soil, not a seed starting mix. That way there are some nutrients in the soil for your plants, since they are going to be out in this for a long time before you plant them out. All right, we are good to go. Let me grab my container. I am just filling the container about 4 inches of soil, and I'm just lightly packing it down to make sure there's no air bubbles in there. And now we can plant some seeds in there. For this one, I'm gonna start with my yarrow. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my labels so they don't get mixed up. All right, and usually on your seed packets, it will tell you some sowing instructions, whether or not they need light to germinate and how deep to sow the seeds. So for this one, it says to press into the soil, but do not cover. They are very little. I'm just gonna lightly spread them out, my soil, sprinkle them around the best that I can. And I'm going to sow this entire container. This is more than 20 seeds. It's probably about 30. And then just lightly press them down. All right, these are good to go. So the next step is closing this container up. So I'm going to take my duct tape and just seal it up. Brush some of this dirt off so it sticks better. That was a short roll of duct tape. All right, let me get my other roll going. That one's used up. Not have to be pretty. It is going to be outside in the rain, in the elements, so just get it taped up the best you can. Tape doesn't want to stick on that side. There we go. All right, and now I'm going to write on the outside of this one, yarrow marshmallow. And that's it. Make sure you keep your cap off, you don't want a lid on it, and that you have your drainage holes. And this one is ready to go. So I will just set it outside. And as far as where to put it outside, just make sure it's in a place where it is exposed to sun and rain. Some people put them up against their house, but sometimes that can be too shaded, and your overhangs from your house can also prevent water from getting into the container. So I will just set these out in my garden. So just as I was about to work on my other containers, I realize what time it is, and I have to run. I have to take my girls to gymnastics. Real life here, so interruptions and all. So I need to run and do that. I realize I also want to go pick up some more gray duct tape. I don't know what I was thinking. My black marker will not show up on the black duct tape. So take note of that. If you're going to do this project, get light color duct tape. So I'm going to grab more duct tape, take my girls to gymnastics, and I'll either resume this later tonight or tomorrow. Hey, so it is the next day. I wasn't able to finish last night, didn't get down here, but I've got a little bit of time before I have to start dinner, so I thought I'd see how many I could get done. I'm just gonna set the camera up and get busy, and once I finish everything, I'll kind of walk you through what I did. So I thought I'd show you where everything ended up. I placed all my containers in our raised bed garden. This tends to get pretty much full sun all day. So this is our raised bed garden that we just started on last June, I believe is when we first started building the beds. It is obviously not finished. We have the gravel, we just need to lay it down in all these walkways. I just haven't had the time yet. And my husband's over there doing a little fence repair, and we still have our arbor pergola to build over the main entrance. But most of these beds are 4x6 or 4x12. So these long ones right here are 4x12, the smaller ones are 4x6. So they're really good size, and then we have 4-foot walkways, pathways in between. So it is a huge garden, much bigger than I had at my last property. We were on less than 1/4 of an acre, and now we're on over 3 acres, and this has just been an absolute dream. So I can't wait to get the rest of the garden finished. My cut flower garden and my veggie garden will be in here. The gravel's gonna go down hopefully in the next few weeks. We still need to paint the fence, put some garden beds all around the whole thing. Just a lot to do, but it's so fun, and I'm just so excited for how far we've come in such a short amount of time on this property. Here's all my containers. I just have them lined up. They're sitting out where they will get moisture, whether it's rain or snow, they get sun. So from here, it's pretty hands off. I'm just gonna leave these containers out here. They'll get the rain, the snow, the sun, everything they need to trigger germination at the exact right time. If we have any prolonged dry periods, I'll come out and I can always put the hose in and give them some supplemental water. But other than that, it's pretty hands off. It's just such an awesomely simple, easy way to start seeds. Let me know if you've ever tried winter sowing, if you've had any luck with it, and or if you plan to try it. Thanks for gardening with me today.